Hello everybody, this is Scott Dudley from SaaS Startup Stories, and today my special guest is Jacob Glenn, who's based in Cleveland, Ohio. He's the founder and president at Mgno, who are a boutique firm that develops custom software to fit your specific needs. Welcome to the show, Jacob. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're welcome. All right, so let's get stuck into it. We'll sort of start off with your beginning and what got you interested in software at the beginning.
Sure. Yeah, I've always been a button pusher. Video games, computers, anything tech when I was young. And so that kind of led me into a computer engineering degree. So I went to college, got a computer engineering degree. I loved it, but not so much the coding itself. I was never the best coder, but rather, more of a big picture, solution design, architecture kind of things that did it for me. And so that was kind of how I got on the path that I'm on.
Excellent. Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm not much of a coder myself, but I do have a passion for software. So, but yeah, more at the high level sort of. So yeah, a bit in common there. All right. So tell me a bit about Mgno then, and the types of clients that you're working with there, and what's the target customer?
Sure. Yeah. So we work with anybody from a startup to a Fortune 500. So it's a pretty broad range of customers, but we develop custom software with focus on mobile, cloud, and IoT. Some of our clients are funded startups that need help building their first product. And some of our customers are really large enterprises that need help moving into a new space or developing something new. So that could be taking legacy product and making it a smart product for in the IoT space. Or some of our customers are, and we're doing more of this now in the SaaS space, where it's typically a small to medium-sized business that needs to scratch their own itch. They need to improve operations, or they need to better engage with their customers through technology, and so they want to develop something to do that. But then in that process, there's an opportunity to create it in a way that they can then sell it to other businesses in their space that do similar things to what they do on a subscription basis. And so we're seeing more of that, where typically we build the solution for them, kind of optimize it, and then roll that out to others in their space. And we do that in a way that we do some revenue sharing when they roll it out to other customers, and we continue to manage it for them.
Okay, so with IoT, I believe that's Internet on Time. I'm not actually sure what that is. Can you explain that in a little bit more detail?
Sure. Internet of Things.
Oh, sorry.
So
yeah.
IoT is Internet of Things, and that's really what most people think about is like smart home devices, right? So like the Philips Hue light bulb or the Nest thermostat.
I see.
So anything that can kind of a lot of it right now is around convenience. So, asking Alexa to turn on the lights, or, asking Google to, run your faucet, things like that.
Or the fridge as well. That could be another example, couldn't it?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, interesting. Cool. All right, so I'm just a little bit curious. What made you decide on building custom software for customers instead of like starting your own software-based company, like selling subscriptions? That's a little bit different to what most people are doing.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And there's certainly things about SaaS businesses that are really appealing, from an owner's perspective.
Yeah.
However, it's a different set of challenges at the end of the day, right? So every business has its challenges.
Yep.
With the SaaS solution, you've got to find a product market fit and figure out the sales and marketing channels that'll be effective for that solution. Iterate on that same solution over time to continue to optimize it and reduce churn and all that stuff. When you're building custom software for a variety of customers, you're always working on something new, so it's fresh, and that kind of motivates my employees. It's like that I hire a certain type of developer who likes that new and different thing, and so that's part of it. Plus, we're really good at the stuff we do, but maybe not as good at some of those challenges that come with a different business model.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you're right. No matter which sort of business you're doing, there are always challenges. So, yeah, exactly. So how have you observed software change from, say, 10 years ago to today? What are the biggest differences that you've observed over that time?
I think, on the tech side, when you get into the details of the tech, I don't feel like it's changed all that much, right? The founding principles are the same, but one of the biggest thing I think is connectivity, right? We all carry around a high-powered computer in our pockets now, right? Whereas, 10 years ago, well, 2008 was when the iPhone came out, right? So 12 years ago, that was all new, right? Before that it was a BlackBerry that didn't really have a functional browser, right? So I think the big difference is just, the fact that we're always on, we're always connected, we can do a lot of things no matter where we are, is the biggest difference. And that's opened some doors and created some opportunities to do things in the software space that I don't think would have necessarily gotten the same traction 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. I actually had one of those BlackBerries and I found it to be a terrible phone. I was really disappointed in it. And as soon as the plan was completed, I switched over to the iPhone straight away. I couldn't wait to get away from it. So it just sort of shows the evolution of how things have improved over time. But yeah, that's just sort of one thing that sprung in my mind when you remember when you mentioned the BlackBerry. That sort of just brought back some memories. So
right, yeah. I mean, it was really optimized for being able to email on the go, right? And you think about that, and it seems like so archaic. What do you mean email on the go? Like, of course you can email on the go now, right? But back then, that was you were typically at a desk when you were emailing, right? So
that's true. Yeah,
did innovate, but it was a big.
Well, they don't even make them now, do they? They're obsolete now, aren't they? I think.
Nope, they don't make them anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they've pivoted. They're in the software business now.
Oh, okay. Still in the phones or?
Yeah, so they still do software for mobile, but it's all software instead of hardware now.
Oh, I see. Yeah, fair enough. Cool. That's interesting. All right. So, in your opinion, what's the key to successfully transitioning from an engineer to a leader?
I think it starts with kind of recognizing if that's your path is the first thing, because not every engineer is really equipped to be a leader. As engineers, you really rarely get leadership training early on. So you have to kind of assess whether that's something that you want to do and whether you're going to be good at it before you even kind of answer that question. But then I think it's being able to think beyond just the technology and thinking about the people and the relationships and the all the other stuff involved with building something. Beyond just the building it, because as engineers, we kind of heads down focus on building something. And some of us think about that very low level, and some of us think about that big picture like solutioning. But when you talk about leadership, there's that people component. And so some engineers are really aware and good at that, and they can transition easily. Some of them aren't. Some of them are just better situated to continue that technical path. So I think it just depends on the individual.
Yeah, I'd imagine that there'd be a lot of engineers that wouldn't be interested really in leadership. They'd just be happy with writing code sort of for the rest of their life pretty much. So I guess you're right. It depends on their aspirations and where they want to go in life. So.
Yeah. And I subscribe to our business is a culture-driven organization. I subscribe to the idea that, culture is really important to business success. And so it's all about the people and, what's going to motivate them. And I think that's important as a leader to understand those things.
That's true. So how many people you got working with you?
So we're 10 people and then we have some subcontractors that we work with as well, but 10 people in-house.
Okay. And so the whole sort of team's pretty much in-house, is it? Do you have contractors like overseas or?
No. So we're all 100% onshore, 100% actually local to our office here in Cleveland.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, because the farthest person I have is a contractor who we work with regularly for years, who lives about an hour away.
Okay, fair enough. Full on local. That's cool. All right. Yeah. So why is custom software often a wise long-term investment rather than trying to do it yourself, like some business owners decide to do and end up tearing their hair out, I guess?
Yeah, well, so I think there's a lot of value in leveraging the expertise that someone like me or my company or our competitors bring to the table, right? We've done it, we know how to do it. When you're doing it yourself, you're learning as you go. You're going to make all the mistakes that we made years ago, right? And so you shortcut that, and if you choose a good partner, they're going to walk you through not only avoiding those mistakes, but also thinking about what is the future, right? And so when we do an initial solution for someone, we always talk about the long-term vision so that we can build
Yeah.
so that it can move to that versus just building what they ask for now, right? And I think that when you're doing something yourself, you a lot of times miss that.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. All right, so we've already touched on this a bit with the local part, but why do you believe onshore and in person is the best way to develop software? So why have you gone that way rather than expanding like globally?
Sure. Yeah. So I think throughout my career, I've dealt with offshore in a number of scenarios, and it never goes well. And so my experience has been there are cultural challenges, right? So if someone in Ohio is trying to build something with a firm in India, there are just some cultural differences where the way that we communicate what we're trying to accomplish may not make as much sense. So that's one. Two, relationships are important, right? Like people interact with people, and so those relationships are valuable, and you can't have that, over seas, really. I mean, you can try, and technology is improving to allow for more face-to-face like we're doing now.
Yeah.
But it's still not the same.
No, it's not. Yeah.
And then, there's a quality and process component there. In my experience, offshore, when you're working with an offshore organization, you need to document things very clearly, be very specific about what you want built, and then, kind of hand it off and then get it back. And hopefully they understood what you wrote. And that's how that process works. Whereas when we're working with a customer, we can work with them to understand, and we can iterate, and it's not a over the wall and back kind of scenario. It's a side by side where, kind of holding hands as we walk down the street kind of thing.
I guess the other thing too would be time zones. I mean, look at us. I mean, there's about 14 hours roughly, or whatever it is, time zone difference between where you live and where I live. So that would be a factor as well, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, being able to have the conversations versus sending an email or a document is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. So what are your plans for Mgno in the next 12 to 18 months?
So, we're going to keep doing what we do. We don't have plans to kind of change directions, really. We're just, we have grown. We've been in business 8 years now, and we've grown conservatively over that time, and we'll continue to do that. I think, we'd like to see growth. I think one of the things that we are trying to do, so all of our business has been built on referrals and partnerships. We've never done any real outbound sales, and we may start to try to scale that way versus just depending 100% on our relationships.
Well, that's always a good thing, isn't it? If you don't really have to spend money on advertising, I mean, that would be a bonus. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we've gotten where we are, and it's worked out quite well. Excellent.
All right. So based on your experience, what advice would you give a founder of a startup SaaS company?
So, in my experience, I think there's a couple things. One is go prove someone's going to pay for it before you build it. I think in the SaaS space, there's an opportunity to go out there and get people to sign up and actually put a credit card down before you have a product, right? And I've seen this done in a couple different ways, where you may have just a very small kind of prototype or proof of concept that people could see how that works in a demo kind of environment, and they're willing to pay for it. That right there is validation and can give you the confidence that you should go build it versus go spending a bunch of money to build something and then hoping that people are going to buy it. which, this goes back to my, the challenge of sales and marketing with a SaaS business is,
Yeah.
you've got to be able to reach people and know that that you can convert them, right? And so my advice would be spend the time up front to figure that out and figure out the product market fit before you go build it, because building it's not the hardest part in that scenario when you're first starting out.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure there's been plenty of examples where sort of companies have spent, 12 months of blood, sweat and tears and a lot of capital on an idea. And then at the end of it, they haven't been able to sell it to anybody. And it's just all wasted time and money and be devastating. So,
yeah. And in today's technology environment, you can spin stuff up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But if you can't sell it, then it's kind of a waste.
Yeah, there's no point. Exactly. Cool. All right. So what are the biggest challenges you currently face in your business?
So I think the biggest one is just what I mentioned, right? Like, so we've grown to where we are based on relationships, but there is a point at which that doesn't scale. And so for us to continue to grow, I think we're going to need to move towards more kind of outbound versus just the inbound model that we've had to date. So that's one challenge. And then, we're always challenged to stay on top of the latest technology and balance that with the business that we're delivering, right? So we work a lot with AWS and Google Cloud Platform, right? And so we face a challenge where we start a project and we're building something. AWS, rolls out some new offering that solves a big problem that we had, a year ago. And we're like a couple months from finishing, and it's like, oh, why didn't you use that? Well, it didn't exist when we started. So the pace at which technology changes and being able to balance that is always a challenge.
For sure, can understand that. Yep. Okay, so what are your favorite online tools and platforms that you use to run your business?
So I think this isn't necessarily a tool, but AppSumo is basically they send out emails, they do deals, right, where you can get access at a significantly reduced cost to a lot of SaaS platforms that are out there, and I think it's a great tool for people who are running businesses who want to be a little scrappy and aren't sure they want to kind of invest in a monthly subscription for something before they really know if they're going to use it, right?
Yep.
And so AppSumo is a great one because you can get access to something for a year or even for lifetime use at a pretty discounted rate. So that's one that I'd recommend. And there's some things that I've gotten from AppSumo that I think are pretty interesting. One of them is a solution called Dry Run, which is it's basically a cash flow forecasting tool.
Okay.
And there are lots of ways to do your cash flow forecasting, but it's a really simple tool that lets you kind of visualize kind of what's coming and where you are cash flow wise. That I think is, I got a lifetime subscription to it through AppSumo, and I use it just to get a pulse on things sometimes.
Does that link to your bank accounts, like automatically pull in transactions and stuff like that?
So it can link to QuickBooks and platforms like that to do that.
Nice. Okay. Because that's always handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what are you curious about or researching right now regarding software?
So Amazon Sidewalk is so there. This is Amazon's trying to solve the connectivity problem for things outside of your Wi-Fi network, or maybe in a Wi-Fi dead zone where they're trying to leverage the 900 megahertz spectrum to create connectivity for IoT devices that you can put anywhere on your property and get connectivity at a low cost, so that whole kind of sensor network, or you're trying to, when I think about things like, where is there opportunity to, leverage data and devices to improve lives, right? Like I think about my own, like at my house, right? Like, hey, I had a gutter clog the other day because one of my kids hit a tennis ball into the gutter and I didn't know, and right. But if I had a sensor in the downspout that would tell me there's flow not flow in that gutter, but in other gutters, that would be a very simple solution, a low cost solution that I could stick in. I have 6 downspouts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if one of them is not flowing and all the others are, that's some good information, right? But connectivity is a challenge there, right? Because a lot of people don't have Wi-Fi that connects to all of the, outside of their house, all the corners of the outside of their house with Wi-Fi.
Particularly if it's a large house, yes.
Yeah, and so in that scenario, something like that where you have a connectivity solution could add a lot of value. So I'm kind of interested in where they're going to go with that and how that's going to play out. Okay,
interesting. All right, cool. So just to wrap up, where can people go to find out more about Mgno software?
Sure. Yeah. So our website, mgno.com, is where you can learn about us. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. And that's really the only social channel that I'm active on, but you can find me there, and I'm always happy to connect with people and happy to discuss, ideas or solutions that someone's interested in building.
Excellent. All right, then. Thanks for being on the show, Jacob. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Okay, then. Take care.